Hello and welcome. Welcome to my channel. Today I have some information for you on the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Now, we're still under the influence of the eclipse, even though all the buzz has kind of gone away. It does last, the April 8th eclipse, well, the pair of them, but it does last for about 5 or 6 more months. And we also have this particular planetary influence, which is very important, happening as well. So before we get started, please be sure to click below on the bell to subscribe to my channel, and please like this video. If you are not already subscribing to my newsletter, please do. It's through Substack, which you can sign up on my website, and I'll put the links below this video. I'm writing a book, so periodically I will be asking my readers for their help, maybe doing a little research on charts and so on. So if you'd like to be a part of this process, please make sure you subscribe. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Sara Bourland. I'm a professional evolutionary and psychological astrologer who focuses on guiding people to understanding their soul purpose. If we just tune into the natural cycles, we can learn a lot about ourselves. And in my particular case, which kind of got me hooked into astrology 27 years ago, is tremendous healing can occur. So it's a way of kind of having a guidepost and then checking how you feel against kind of what's going on. It can be very, very informative. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into Jupiter conjunct Uranus. So and I talked about this in my 2024 forecast. This really is about a time of unexpected changes. And I call this a wake-up call. So what I'm going to cover today is, here's the chart for those of you that want to kind of look at it. It's right here at in the seventh house in this particular chart. Don't worry about the house. It's not about how it's for you, but it's Jupiter Uranus at 2149 of Taurus. And what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to first talk about the collective, a little bit of the mundane level. I'm going to look back at the historical, and then we'll see how this is giving influence on what we're seeing today. And then we're going to talk about the personal. So we have Jupiter meets Uranus in the sky. Now, this happens every 14 years. What do I mean by that? If you look at this picture, you'll see two stars that are really close together. So it's where the alignment of these planets become and take up, I call it the address in the sky, right? They're not, they're a long ways apart, but from Earth, they look like they're next to each other. So Jupiter meets Uranus every 12 to 14 years. Now, Jupiter meets Uranus in the sign of Taurus, which is where we're at now, every 84 years. So this is kind of a big cycle. So one of the things I want to do is break this down. So we're going to look at, first we're going to look at Jupiter, then we're going to look at Uranus, then we're going to look at Taurus. So the meaning of Jupiter is that whatever it touches it expands, right? It's about abundance. It's very optimistic. It's hopeful. Jupiter wants to make things larger, and it wants to reach out. So it's about the big picture, and it's about expansion. Now that's all the positive stuff, but what happens if you reach too far and you overreach? If you have that slice of chocolate cake, which looks fantastic, and you're just really enjoying it, if Jupiter's involved, then you're probably going to have a second piece or maybe even a third piece. That's excessive, right? And so this is when, every planet and every sign has both positive and the negative connotations. And so we're always going to be somewhere in the mix. So just don't think everything's really positive or always negative. Is you have to judge for yourself how this is coming out for you and then readjust. So Jupiter can also be about indulgence. All right, Uranus. Uranus is about independence. It's about things that are unexpected. If you look at the picture there of Tesla, sorry. These are like sudden bursts of insight. It's about electrical energy too. It's things that are electric. Liberation, freedom. It's revolutionary energy, and it can also represent breakthroughs, right? Things that you couldn't see before, all of a sudden, boom, they've just dropped down from the heavens into your mind, and you just know it. Now, negative aspects of Uranus can be it's rebellious, right? Rebellious just for the purpose of being a rebel, like without a cause. Rebelliousness is fine to a degree. If there's a purpose behind it, it's a little bit more revolutionary, right? But without a cause, without a purpose, it's just disruption. It's chaos. Also, Uranus can be impatient, right? It wants things quick, it wants it now. It also represents upheaval and can, in some cases, represent extremism. Now, we are going to, I know I said I'd talk about Taurus. I'll talk about Taurus a little bit later, but Taurus is things that involved the earth, things that are physical and tactile, like our comfort level. It rules our values, right? Or it involves our values, doesn't rule it. So it has a lot to do with things of the physical plane, right? Including the earth. And we'll talk more about that as this goes on. So I'm just going to, before we get to the conjunction, right now, I just want to break down Uranus and Taurus. And again, I talked about this in my forecast, so you'll see some of this information is familiar. But Uranus and Taurus, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018 and will be in Taurus until 2026. So it's a really slow moving outer planet. And as it's moving through Taurus, it takes a number of years. The last time that Uranus was in Taurus was 1934 through 1942. So let's take a look at what was happening. So again, think Earth, think food, think security. Like all of these things are in the Taurus realm. And then Uranus, which is sudden change, unexpected, things out of the blue, could be also advances. So the 20th century, early 20th century, what events were happening? So events of unexpected change were the Dust Bowl. Like out of the blue came this Dust Bowl in the early 1930s. We had the locust plague of 1931, devastated millions of acres. We also, I think this year is supposed to have some sort of it's not here where I live, but some sort of a cicada thing coming up. Now that's on a more regular cycle, but I think it's interesting. That again, it's like bugs, but bugs over bugs, too many bugs. The rise of Hitler and World War II, just as a side note, that was happening. I'm not saying this caused it, but that was happening during this time period. And because of that, food rationing and scarcity became an issue. Certainly, the government was encouraging Americans to build victory gardens, take care of yourself, feed yourselves, because the big food supply that we have for our country now has to be shipped off to the troops. But how are they going to keep the food preserved? So now all of a sudden we have this innovation of preservatives and chemicals used to keep our food for longer periods of time so that it actually could reach the troops and still be fresh, edible, so on. So we had chemicals. This advent of chemicals came about because of this need in this particular time period. Fertilizers, DDT, and one of the big things was like I remember as a kid, the cans in the freezer of orange juice, right? Concentrated orange juice. And again, keeping things frozen and so on. So that was happening 84-ish years ago when Uranus was in Taurus. So how does that compare to today? So the challenges that we have today, and this is interesting, remember Uranus went into Taurus in 2018, is we had during the COVID pandemic, we had food and supply chain issues. So I remember coming back from Thailand in March of 2020. And because we had our house rented out, I emptied out my kitchen. I got rid of all of I slowly dwindled everything away, but there was nothing in our refrigerator, nothing in our pantry. There was no food in the house. Gave it all away to my neighbors because I wanted to make sure that our kitchen was empty and ready for people who were going to live there for 4 months. So we came back and there was no food in the grocery stores. It was a very challenging time to try to restock my pantry, my refrigerator, all my staples, when there was so little to be had. So, other challenges that occurred within this news cycle right now is that we're seeing such environmental instability. Oh my gosh. The superstorms happening around the globe, whether it's floods, fires, hurricanes, and tornadoes, things that we have not seen before. The amount of rainfall has just been off the charts. And of course, glacial ice melt is a big concern, rising tides and so on. So we're seeing again this sudden change. And yet when you've got Jupiter in there, it's sudden change bigger. So it's interesting to see how these correlations play out. So we're seeing undergoing radical change in how we relate to the earth as well as to each other. Now, there's some positive things that are happening in a reaction to all of the chemicals that are in our food supply, whether it's at the ground level and how things are grown to the processing. There's a huge kickback or pushback to that right now. So we have, people are concerned about the Earth's health. People are concerned about their physical body and health and healing. So we're seeing a big push and have on organics and green solutions. Technological advances. We're also seeing, oh my gosh, the digital movement in terms of health data that people can use around the globe as well as personal health data. I love being able to look on my phone and check all of my labs, and just kind of keep track of, my own personal health. Sustainable food production is becoming a big issue. Alternatives to toxic ingredients in terms of how things are grown. There's an evolution in food, such as things like Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, and so on. And a big movement towards plant-based, both for benefit for the earth as well as benefit for humans. Or if you're not 100% plant-based, at least several days a week or something, is a big thing. Now, another piece that's coming out of this that's positive that I'm going to talk about in a minute is this idea that plants are important and our sentient beings actually have feelings. The roots of the root system in a forest is just like the internet, which is just like in our mind, the synapses, how everything is all connected, like the World Wide Web, right? So there's these patterns and themes that repeat. But animals are sentient beings, which I think is a big awareness for a lot of people. More and more people are opening up to this and more vegan lifestyle, due to the fact that people are recognizing that animals are sentient beings. It's a huge, huge change. Um, so going back to this again, Taurus. Taurus it's about our values. So which also happens to be money, which I'm not really going to talk too much about in this particular talk, but it's all the things that are manifest of the earth or in the earth. Simple pleasures, things that affect us physically, right? Like eating, sleeping, the things that we do to take care of our body, our physical body, as well as the earth, right? All the pleasures of life, physical pleasures. Um, Now, I did a little research and I looked into the Berkeley Center for Religious Peace and World Affairs. And it's really interesting. And the author who had done a lot of research, his name is William Andrew Schwartz, argues, Reverend Carithodom, sorry if I've mispronounced that, argues that the ecological crisis that we're seeing today can be traced back to three of Descartes' ideas that shaped modern worldview. And he says subsequently, our modern civilization. Three things. Number one, it's an exaggeration of human-centeredness. In other words, this idea that humans are the most important. And he also said that there was a mechanistic concept of the natural world. In other words, the natural world is like a machine. And the metaphysical dualism between humanity and the rest of the physical world. So in other words, they're separate, right? They're kind of two different things as opposed to all being part of the same system. So he ignored the long-held wisdom of indigenous people and argued that physical entities have a purely mechanistic property, rendering the physical world inert and devoid of any purposeness. Only humans were said to have rational and intellectual properties. Hence, Cartesian dualism has a metaphysical character that alienates human beings from the rest of nature. So this kind of long-held philosophical idea, which has completely no longer have any purpose, but it's interesting that this reverend went back and said he pinpointed this particular thing as sort of this modern worldview that is completely outdated. And William Andrew Schwartz said, the world is alive, a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects, and all living entities have intrinsic value. Unquote. So certainly we see, and this is my value, plants, animals, microorganisms, all matter to the balance and health of our planet. I mean, this is just simple biology, right? And we're abusing our resources of the earth. And I hate to say this, but it will likely lead to our extinction if we don't wake up. So for me, this particular planetary aspect is a wake-up call, right? It's like, oh my gosh, don't sleep on what is happening. Don't get lulled into thinking this is our new normal. And that having these super storms and massive amounts of rains and floods is anything normal. So there's a lot of things that we can change. So that's what I see as the positive influence of this, is that this is a wake-up call. And we can clearly see that what we eat, what we consume, has grown into an over-processed and at times toxic for our well-being. And certainly we all know people who have much more sensitive systems than ourselves and struggle with the food sources. We've become this throwaway society, which is out of control. You know, plastic pollution has become a problem, as we can see from the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean, as well as in our landfills. We have microplastics that are, you know, in our bodies. We're consuming them without even being aware of it. We have pollution in our water, our earth, and our air is out of control, and now we're polluting space. I mean, stuff's starting to fall from the skies, whether it's from planes or satellites. So like, what are we doing? This is a wake-up call. We see that Mother Earth is in need and needs to be treated with dignity and respect. And she's not made of unlimited resources to be used up. So this is something that is, yes, is a government issue, is a world issue, but it's also a personal issue in terms of our choices and how we walk through our daily lives that can have an impact. So, okay, off my soapbox. So, the personal influence on this particular planetary conjunction. Number one, look at your chart and see what house that 2149 degrees of Taurus, or you can call it 22 degrees, occupies. What house? And so that's the area of life where you're going to find this influence. Also, especially if there's planetary other planets in Taurus that are close to that 21 degrees, or, it could be other configurations. So, I'm just trying to wrap this up. So, Jupiter encourages us to broaden our vision and horizon. So, it's like take a big picture view. Jupiter says, get out of the details and open up big and look at things. But at the same time, check yourself because maybe you're overdoing something. So, too much of something is also not good. So, there's that balance like, yes, go for it, but don't overreach, right? Don't overindulge. Don't take 2 to 3 pieces of cake. We can feel the drive to go for it, but balancing your drive and confidence and that urge to expand, but just check yourself. Make sure that you're not going too far. Now, Uranus is very electric energy and it shows up as this out of the blue vision. It can be inspiration, it can be genius, it's ahead of its time. Uranus is also okay going your own way, right? It's like go out on a limb by yourself. You're going to feel okay being alone, even if you haven't felt okay being alone before. So, alone with your ideas, alone with your own concept. You don't care if other people are on board or not. That's Uranus. Breakthroughs can happen during this time, and it can be revolutionary energy that causes you to, or you can just check this, to break out of your routines and start to see things with fresh new eyes. So, again, it's very revolutionary. At other times, things want to you might want to shake things up, which is not bad. Again, just check that rebelliousness in you. If you've got a purpose and you're wanting to shake things up, that's great. Just check yourself. Now, when these two things come together, Jupiter and Uranus come together, there's a blending. So, what does this look like? I don't know. Maybe you wake up at 3 in the morning with a brilliant idea. I wake up at 3 in the morning with brilliant ideas all the time, but sometimes in the morning they don't feel so brilliant anymore, or they feel don't not as big or as important. But maybe you wake up with this brilliant idea that feels big and important. And it's so big and important that when the light of day happens, you take action on it because it's just too perfect to not. And that's what this energy can be about. And again, look in your chart to see where that Taurus energy is occupied, because that's going to be the area of life for you. So anyway, that's what this is about. If you don't have a birth chart, please go ahead and go to my website. I have a tab there called Free Chart. You can just go put your information in and print one out. And there you go. So thanks so much for tuning in. Please check the info below for my offerings. And if you need to check in about your chart, or if you'd like to schedule a reading, please go to my website and hit schedule. Also, if you would, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm just starting to grow this, and so that you don't miss a video. And also, if you want, go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter and catch any upcoming events and news. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the chart, please click the like down below. I super appreciate it. And until next time, keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sky. Thank you so much.